Welcome to the showcase. And today is an exceptional showcase because we've got part two of a very knowledgeable and intelligent guy from down south in the UK that's travelled the world and is very well known, Spencer Gibbons. Hello, Spencer.
Yep, don't forget the K in the middle.
It's got to be the Spencer K. Gibbons.
Oh, yeah. There's a big story behind that as well.
Is there really, Spencer? Well, you must tell me at the end because that'll be the penultimate. So,
You have
Spencer,
to go in, you'll find out.
great. Spencer's he's going to give us some of the negatives, I think, of show business, which is a real positive because every show I've done so far has always been positive, apart from the COVID thing. But Spencer, the stage is yours, sir.
Right, well, here's one for you. Now, for 25 years of my business, I was a cruise director for various different shipping companies. And I used to do 6 months on and 6 months off land-based, because otherwise, if you're on the ships all the time, people think you're dead. So I used to do 6 months on, 6 months off. The shipping companies never liked it, but I thought, no, I'll stick to my guns, and I did. There was one company I took a contract for, and they were cruising out of Limassol in Cyprus. And of course, before we ever set foot on the ship, we had to get the correct artists together. And we auditioned for dancers and got some very lovely young lady dancers. Musician-wise, we had people from Bulgaria, would you believe? Had a wonderful duo and a wonderful house band, a six-piece. But they were brilliant, just brilliant musicians. However, the story, we were doing cruising from Limassol, but 1 month we might cruise around the Greek islands. The next month we would go do Israel, etc., etc. So this particular time, which was early September, 89, I think. Oh, I might be wrong there. Don't quote me on that. So we are on our way back from Haifa in Israel. And it's an overnight trip because we have to be in Limassol for 8 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And it was a great night. The floor show finished with a wonderful number from all of us that was called Hot, Hot, Hot. It's going to be hot, hot, hot. And we're all involved in that, lovely. And then, of course, it all finished about midnight, apart from one large lounge on the ship where I had a duo playing, another duo from Bulgaria. The band leader being a gentleman called, are you ready for this? I'll get his name right in a minute. Modev with his second name. What the hell was his first name? However, irrelevant. So I used to go in there, and it was by this time 1 o'clock in the morning. A lot of passengers are going to bed early because they're docking early. So I decided that I would get up and sit in with the duo. So while the guitarist is picking up his saxophone, I put his guitar on, and we did a few numbers together. And the last number, I didn't do it. One of my girl dancers came in, and she said, could she sing with the duo? We said, yeah, go for it. And she sang, I Will Survive. So get this, you got Hot, Hot, Hot earlier on, and then I Will Survive about 2 hours later. I went to bed about 3 o'clock in the morning, happily the worse for wear, but nobody noticed. And I got in bed and went to sleep straight away. Then about 3:30, evidently, banging on my door saying, quick, everybody, get up, there is a fire on the ship. What? Now, the ship is called the Romantica. So I thought, what the hell's happening here? Then I heard the alarms going off, the 7 short, 1 long emergency alarm. I thought, oh, my word. Oh, my God. So I thought, okay, well, I wear contact lenses. So I thought, right, get your lenses in quick. So I sat down. By then I could smell the burning. I thought, oh, dear, this doesn't smell good. It doesn't sound good. Put my contact lenses in, then suddenly realised I'd put them in the wrong way. Yeah, in the panic. So I thought, no. If I'm going to die, I'm going to at least see what it looked like when I die. So I sat back down, took them out, and put them in. And this time you can hear everything going berserk outside the cabin. And I know I've got to get to my muster station to meet my passengers, of which there should have been something like 25 passengers on my lifeboat station. So eventually I get up. I can smell it. It's incredible. And I eventually, there's smoke everywhere. I got up the stairs and went to my muster station, and I had something like 80 passengers, not 25, 80. And I had one of my girl dancers, little Becky, she's with me. So I said, look, hold on there. Have we got any instructions yet from the captain? No, but you could smell it. You could hear the fire. And I said, right, just hold on here. I'll be about 2 minutes. And I ran down onto another deck and I ran to the huge lounge where my vintage Gretsch guitar was, but I couldn't get in. The fire was in the middle of the ship. It had started in the engine room and it had come up the middle, so I couldn't get in there because of the flames. I ran back and then I heard, I heard the captain, a wonderful Greek captain, and he's going, Spencer, please will you get your passengers down one deck? So I had to crocodile them down and walk along a long corridor. So I'm at the front, my dancers at the back, and they've got 60 odd people, whatever it was. And we're all hand on shoulder going like this, and the flames are licking up either side. I thought, oh, lovely. Eventually I'll get them out to the deck. There was a lifeboat just swinging there, but nobody there, no crew, anything. I've got, oh my word, what's happening now? So then suddenly a crewman arrived. He turned out to be the radio officer, or one of the radio officers. And he said, right, we'll get everybody in. I said, okay, fine, here we go. So we got some steps. And the thing was just hanging like that. The ship was stopped, of course. It's in the middle of the night, but you can see the flames are everywhere. And I managed to get all these passengers crammed in to this one lifeboat, and we knew we were overloaded, but there was nothing we could do about it. So then what happened then is that the purser came running along, who was an Egyptian Cypriot, worked that one out. Egyptian Cypriot, and he's got a bag on his shoulder, but he's panicking. He's running up and down screaming, we're all going to die. So I said, come here, you. And I chinned him. I had to put one on him to calm him down. Chinned him and I slapped him. And he sort of shrunk into himself. We got him on board. We all got on. And then somebody said, well, how do we lower the thing? It's up on the next deck because it's lowered by a special lever. Oh, dear. God bless him. The radio officer shinned up these oily ropes, got to the top, and then it wouldn't release. It wouldn't release. So then he's shouting, I'm going to get an axe. So bang, 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 we could hear him a couple of minutes later. And eventually, by sort of very slow gravity, the thing starts to move down the side of the ship. Right? He shins back down again. We have one other crew member who joined us, who gets behind me to start the motor and everything. And you could feel the heat coming off the ship side. Could feel it. And we eventually got down, and then the split pins that were holding the big hooks, they'd been painted in by mistake. So again, he has to get that axe out, and he's knocking split pins out, and eventually we're free of these huge hooks. So we're just drifting, but you can see that the whole side of the ship is turning red with the heat, dear. So the next thing was the bloke behind me, he can't start the motor because these motors they've only got about less than a gallon of petrol in there. That is to get you away from the ship, but leave you in the area because of the SOS calls. So in the end, I just had to shout to the officer in the front. I said, get everybody to move into the middle and everybody pull up the floorboards there because inside there is where they keep the emergency oars. Because we can't get the thing moving. We eventually get there. And as I've told there to everybody remove their things, the idiot behind me who couldn't get the thing moving in the first place, he removed the floorboards there. So when I stepped back to evaluate the situation, I went down 6 foot to the bottom of this bloody dinghy thing. Oh, my word. So eventually we managed to oar, and we saw everybody else was coming down, and we managed to form a circle of all these little boats. And the long story was eventually we got everybody off that burning ship, everybody. And the captain was he was lifted off by a helicopter because they were sending things out from Limassol, which was over an hour and a half away. So we were sitting in the middle of the Mediterranean for a couple of hours in a big circle of boats until we saw the rescue ship coming. And that was a ship called the Victoria, which was a Louis something or other company. But however, they rescued us. And the amazing thing was, we were the last boat to get in to the side of the ship. And I was making sure that everybody I was just doing my job. I'm no hero. I was just doing my job. That's what I was trained to do. And we got them all up. When it was turned for somebody grabbed my arm off the ship, and this big Scottish voice says, "Jesus, what the hell are you doing here, son?" And it was the fella that I'd employed for 2 years before with my teams. And he was working on that ship. There we go. So eventually, the
My
ship
God.
slowly but surely, and yes, he got me up, and eventually our ship, which was well ablaze, and I've still got video footage because all the helicopters were flying around filming everything.
Wow.
Yeah, eventually we got back to Limassol. So that was one big story.
Can I ask you a couple of questions? Was the sea rough when you was in the boat?
No, absolutely like a plate of glass.
Wow, that was lucky. And did
Yep.
the ship sink, or was it towed off
It
and
was
fire put
eventually
out?
towed, still burning. It was towed to just inside the limit, about 4 miles out, where they had to leave it because it was still alight. And we actually watched it over the next 3 days from land because we weren't allowed to leave until they did the investigation. But every day we could see the ship getting lower and lower until it disappeared. And now
Really?
it is an official dive wreck for people
Wow.
who want to scuba dive and go round a wreck.
Do you know anybody that can go get your guitar for you?
That guitar I had was a vintage Gretsch guitar, American, for which there were only 50 made, 50 of this model. I had number 9. It had been valued at that time at about £8,000. And my very good friend, who still plays with Marty Wilde, Eddie, he made me an offer just before I went off. He offered me £5,000 for it. I told him to go forth and multiply. I wish I'd have done it now. So there we are.
And did you recover the costs? Was you paid for it?
All I ever got was about £3,000. Because once you're out in the middle of the ocean, you're not insured. Everybody thinks they are, but no, you're not. You have to fight for everything. And eventually I got about 3,000. Most of it was from my home insurance because my guitar was insured for at home as well. And somehow I managed to get 2.5 grand, something like that. And I think the shipping company gave us each £500 and
Oh,
said, go away. And there we are. And the
God.
rest I could never tell you about because I'll get the mafia after me.
That's very interesting, and I certainly can't imagine myself in that position at all. You have to be as cool as a cucumber, and you must have been.
Evidently, one of the girls said, "You were walking round checking everybody's life jacket, eating an apple." I said, "Really?" And I don't remember that. Don't remember that. So there we go.
Hats off to you. Hats off to you. That's an amazing story, and congratulations. I think you probably saved a few people's lives as well.
Well, I doubt it. We got everybody off. That was the main thing. I mean, I personally didn't get everybody off because I couldn't get to them. But I did get my lot off in my lifeboat. You know, so
Wow.
I don't think I was a hero. I was just a bloke doing a job.
Right place, wrong time, right place. I don't know.
Story of my life. You read my books.
Yes, I forgot. We'll have to push your book more. What are your books on Amazon?
Yes.
Spencer.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I did put a link in the last one. Yeah,
Yeah,
very
you
good.
did.
So,
Second one.
and
Second
yeah,
one was called One of Us Nearly Made It.
yes. Ah, yeah.
The third one
Remember?
I'm writing at the moment. It's the third of the trilogy.
Yeah,
And it says, who gives a star, 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 star if he made it or not?
interesting. Okay, tell me about the K, Spencer K. Gibbons.
All right, okay, yeah. I've got another story for you about.
Well, we'll have that first. We'll have
But the
that
K
first.
was very simple. When I first started going out with a young lady when I was about 11 years old, and I noticed women of the same age, and I was in love with this girl, and she said, "Oh, I'm going on holiday with my parents." I said, "Well, look, will you write to me? Because I've never, ever received a letter." So she said, "Yes, I will." So every night I came home from school, I'd say to my mum, "Is there a letter for me, mum?" And she'd say, "No, no." Until one night I came home and she said, "Yes." And she had a face like a smack bum. "Yes." I said, "And?" "It's there." And she pointed to the letter on the table, and the letter was opened. And I said, "Who's opened my letter?" She said, "I did. It was addressed to me." I said, "How do you work that one out, mum?" She said, "It said Mrs. Gibbins." I said, "Mum, it says Mr. S. Gibbins, me." And unfortunately, the girl of 11 years old was very specific about what we'd got up to before she went on holiday. Mother read it. So from then on, I put my second name in. So from then on, Spencer K. Gibbons. And that is my equity name as well as my real name.
That's a valid answer, that one, Spencer. I like it.
My mother's face was a cracker, I'll tell you.
Dear. She knew what a devil he was then, eh?
I'm not going into that. The short answer is yes.
I think we all was. I think entertainers are born that way, Spencer.
Me?
Well, I was. When I first found my guitar at 14, I seemed to have more girlfriends than I had anything. So in them days, in the 1960s, 70s, if you could play an instrument and sing, you was hot toffee, I
Well,
suppose.
when I do my Beatles tours or my rock and roll tours, in the preamble, that's before we ever move and go and see various places, I always explain that I couldn't, honestly, I'll use the old expression, I could not pull a bird. I was 6'1" and I was wearing, in those days, Harry Potter glasses. I couldn't pull a bird until I saw a photograph of Buddy Holly. I thought, wow, look at those glasses. So I went out and bought a pair of Buddy Holly glasses, and then from the day I put them on, I never looked back.
Thank you, Buddy Ollie. Oh, you said earlier about Marty Wilde. I used to play keyboards and piano at the Scarborough Grand Hotel, and there was two rooms. There was the ballroom, which was a big ballroom, and then the opposite
No, it
room
won't.
was like a show.
I know it won't.
Well, I was in the show by every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, packed the place. Marty Wilde was on in the show bar and in the theatre bar, and Kim Wilde was stood in the doorway watching me perform. I mean, the place was packed. It was fantastic, and I didn't know at the time. I really didn't know. And then I packed my gear away, went home. Next time I got to the gig, somebody said, "Kim Wilde was asking about you." I said, "Who's Kim Wilde?" "Marty Wilde's daughter. Kids in America." I said, "Get her on, asking about me." I mean, I was a cool, good-looking dude at the time.
Haven't
And
changed. You
they
haven't
said,
changed.
"Yeah." Thank you very much, Spencer. And I couldn't believe it. And I thought, I hope Marty Wilde comes again. And about a year later, Marty Wilde's there. No Kim. So I went into the ballroom and I said, "Marty," I said, "pleased to meet you. My name's Sean Martin. I'm in the other room and everything. And I met your daughter." I didn't meet your daughter, but your daughter watched my show in thingy. She said, "Oh, Kim," give me a telephone number. And then I somehow contacted her and she sent me a signed autograph of herself.
Lovely.
But she didn't conversation anymore or anything
Now,
like
she's a
that.
lovely
So
girl. A very
yeah,
brief
is
story
she?
about me and Marty Wilde. I mean, I've known Marty since 1958. That's how long I've known him.
Wow.
But,
Before I was born.
yeah, but I started to do a lot of business with Marty's wife, who is Joyce Wilde, former Vernon girl. and I got her. She would recommend me for acts, and I would put them into this large leisure centre during the summer seasons. So Joyce and I worked together for about 4 or 5 years, and every year I would spend 3 or 4 days at Marty's house, which is in Chewin in Hertfordshire. And of course, I got to know Marty even better then, and etc. And I saw this little snotty-nosed schoolgirl who used to come in about 6 o'clock in the evening after she'd been to her friends, after she'd been to school. And that, of course, was Kim. And as this went on, the years went on and on and on. And I saw her grow up, and I found out that she was going to be recording one of Marty's songs. And anyway, she became a big star, which was wonderful. The Christmas after she had the big hit with Kids from America, I'm doing pantomime at Stevenage in Hertfordshire. And suddenly a voice comes over the show relay system. Would Spencer please come down to the dressing room? Not the dressing room. Would Spencer come down to the stage door? Miss Kim Wilde is there to talk to you. And everybody went, "What? You know Kim Wilde?" I went, yeah, lovely old friend of mine. So I got a lot of street cred for that. Thanks, Kim. We laugh about it. And I saw
Wow.
her just recently.
I wish I'd have known and spoke to her because, a missed opportunity like that, amazing. But, you don't know everybody. You just don't know, a lot of artists I've never heard of, and people say, "Oh, you've never heard of him?" That's the way it goes. So Spencer, story number 2.
Okay. At one point, when I'd got all the recording bits out of the way for the time being, that was with me and them, and also with Chris Andrews. We did all the big Chris Andrews bit, Yesterday Man, To Whom It Concerns, Something on My Mind, etc., etc., etc. So then, after about a year, Chris's manager, who was a very hard lady called Evie Taylor, she decided that Chris would no longer need the band, and he would just go out and either get a scratch band if he needed it or work to tracks. Yeah, okay, fair enough. We had a good couple of years out of it, as well as the previous stuff. So anyway, what happened then was that I joined, are you ready for this? I joined an Irish show band. I did my homework and I went to see a couple in London, and they were brilliant. I saw Joe Dolan and the Drifters. I saw Big Tom and the Mainliners. And I thought, these are fantastic. And I was proud. I got the job with the band. It was called at the time the Shannon Aces. But then, after about a year and a half, I persuaded the management that we should be doing clubs and the big nightclubs, which we did do. We did all the Bailey circuit and everything, because we had the comedy in the band, which was me and the bass player, and we had the best singer in the world. So there we are. So then we got offered management, and we accepted her offer by Dorothy Squires. Yep. And she got us a recording contract with President Records that she was part of, and we were there. And now the story was, let's go back a little bit. I had to get to Euston Station and meet the bass player. Him and I, because we were doing other things, we weren't going to travel in the bandwagon. So we were going up north, we were going up to Manchester, and the rest of them were going by the wagon. So we were going to go by train. We hated the wagon. Anywhere we could travel by train, we did. So anyway, but it's starting to blizzard. The snow is coming down with a vengeance. Oh, I beg your pardon, it wasn't Manchester, it was Birmingham. So we've got the train to Birmingham, and then we start hearing the weather's got worse and worse. The M1 has been closed off, the M6 is closed off. Oh my God. So eventually this train, after 4 hours, it gets there. So we arrive in a taxi in about 4 foot of snow, something like that. And the rest of the band arrived. It had taken them 8 hours. But of course, the job was cancelled. It was cancelled. We all arrived and we went, well, now what happens? I said, we can't get anywhere now. So the caretaker of this huge dance hall, he said, well, you can stay here the night. And it was an old-fashioned dance hall, and they had gas heaters in the roof. So they said, you can stay here, lads, at least it'll be warmer. So 2 of the fellas in the band said, Yeah, well, what do we sleep on? And he said, well, you can either sleep on the chairs or you can wrap yourself up in the big cover that covers the grand piano. They chose to do that. Another two members of the band said, we're not doing that. We're going to sleep in the van. I said, don't do that. You'll be so cold. I went, no, we'll be all right. Me and the bass player, we walk into the kitchen, a little tiny kitchen, no bigger than this room I'm in now. And the fires are on in the roof. So it's toast. So we opened up one of these big cupboards and it was huge. And the size of the cupboard space was about 4 foot deep and about 3 foot high. It was like, once you close the doors, it was like you're in a coffin. But we always used to carry sleeping bags with us. So we got the sleeping bags, me and my mate. I'm at the top, he's at the bottom. Close the doors, and it's like toast. We were able to make cups of tea. And about an hour later, there's a banging on the door. Let us in, let us in. When we opened it, there were two penguins there who were in the van with ice and snow dripping down them. They'd frozen in the back of the van. Well, can we get warm? I said, well, you can either go in the dance hall or you can come into this. I said, but you're not getting in the bloody, you're not getting in them cupboards because we're in it already. So one slept on the floor and one slept on the table. And the other two froze to death in the other hall. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, back came the caretaker, and he's got a plate of bacon sandwiches in his hand. He'd struggled through the snow to bring us all bacon sandwiches. We loved him for that. So there you go,
Wow.
horror story number 2.
That's awesome. I mean, these stories are just, unbelievable. People watch artists or go to see performers. They don't realize behind the scene what goes on. It really is fantastic. And I love to these stories. Absolutely
I
fantastic.
served my apprenticeships.
Yes, you have. I think like many others. And I think I was glad to be born in the 60s. I was born 1960, Spencer. And I'm so glad I was because I got to see Clubland at its height.
Yes.
Theatres that were full. I was a proud equity member, even though I didn't do a lot of equity stuff. I was glad to get me £40 a day, when it was about, and great times, Spencer. Travel the world like yourself. Now you're lucky if you can get a cruise on a ship. Everybody's fighting for the same jobs.
That's right. That's right. And I also
The
tell
theatres are
people
so
about,
hard to fill.
I tell people about when I was a session musician, I played on about 22 hit records. And they said, oh, you
Wow.
must be worth a fortune. I said, get
Yeah.
out of it. We used to get £9 for 2 hours. £9 as a session musician. And if it got to number 1, which a couple of mine did, you didn't get paid for it. You'd already been paid to play on the record.
Yeah, that's it. You're a session musician. That's all you get. You're not the star. Interesting. Fantastic story, Spencer. And few. Thank you very much for today. Really, really enjoyed it.
Well, we got there eventually.
We did. Your patience is a virtue, and thank you very much for that. It's been fantastic, and I look forward to chatting with you again. So, ladies and gents, just to remind you, the showcase is all about entertainers, how they achieved their success. Like Spencer says, all the background things that went on as an entertainer. You see it all. Spencer's given his time today for your entertainment. I just hope you watch it, share the video, and post some comments if you want to speak to Spencer on the YouTube video. Please do. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you very much, folks. May I wish you all a very Merry Christmas.
Oh, it's a bit early, but it's fine.
No, that's good, that. See you again. Thank you very much.